So welcome to District 4, to the point for information and news. I'm your host, A-Love. We are talking top trials to track. And of course, I told you I was going to cover the Bryan Kohberger case. That's the four students that were unfortunately murdered in their home in Idaho. The interesting thing is that this is official now, that they are going to televise. It will be live streamed, the court proceedings. And it's not that that's not normal, I guess, nowadays, that people do live stream trials, but I want to highlight this one in particular. It's who the defendant is. I feel like, in my opinion, that this is not a good idea with this type of defendant. This is a person that seeks to be recognized or known. And even though a lot of defendants have that, in his case, he sort of feeds on the mystery he believes he's building around what happened that night. He almost enjoys the fact that nobody really knows his motive. The people don't really understand where he was coming from, that they don't know a lot about him, and all of these things that seem to put a smile on his face, if no expression at all. But in his demeanor and his countenance, you can kind of tell he kind of feeds on it. Putting him live, or a defendant live like this, I don't know if that's a good idea. It's already done, so I really didn't have any say in that. But I'm banking that we're probably promoting, an agenda of a person that thinks on a lower level than maybe the court might be thinking. Just to give you a little backing, the story goes that there was four students living in the same home. You know how party house like you do when you're in college. Young people are all living on different floors in each room, and they were murdered. Now, allegedly by the defendant, Bryan Kohberger. The reality of the situation is that he has to have a trial, so we can't really say that that's happening. But a lot of the evidence that have come out before the trial, because we don't have the trial yet, it sort of points to him. I mean, it's basically, we have a sleeve from a knife that is an exact replica, if not the exact weapon, that was purchased by the defendant. Ski mask was purchased months in advance. He lived nearby. He was caught driving during the times of the murder, although he said he midnight drives a lot. He tried to get into the house at one point during a party when the defendants were actually not home. There's also a phone call and a witness that lived in the house that talked about opening her door and sort of seeing the eyebrows really become a big factor in this case. It's actually, as funny as it sounds, grounds for a motion, pretrial motion, whether or not they can admit into evidence the fact that these bushy eyebrows were part of the description for the what would be the witness, or the witness that actually survived this evening. The 911 call is also a part of the whole scenario. It has the remaining persons in the home not having discovered at that time that their roommates had been unfortunately slaughtered in the eve of the night. So it's a lot of stuff that's sort of going on. The defendant is silent. He doesn't speak much. I don't expect him to take the stand. I'd be very surprised if he actually did. I think with the type of person he is, it'll just hurt him. He doesn't seem like, he seems like a classic, if you were to look at a textbook, sort of white male, pent up emotion murderer, you would think of someone that sort of fit this description of the defendant. And that's the tradition or the stereotype of what this type of crime dictates for this type of defendant. So I don't know. I think we took to this story because it was so much mystery surrounding the defendant. He never spoke. And I think that that sort of was part of the whole thing to keep him from incriminating himself, but also to build a little mystery around him. I feel like the defendant maybe felt like that classic loner, outcast, that wanted to feel included, perhaps powerful in that moment, or that he had some sort of control over these popular defendants, in quote unquote, that were excluding him in his mind. It doesn't take much, I've learned in my history or in my past studies, to trigger these types of emotions in a defendant like this. That you don't even have to know them in order to trigger these emotions. You just have to represent what these students would have represented to a loner personality. They would have represented everything that this loner wanted to be and wanted to be included in. And even the slightest rejection, even the just walking past him and not noticing him, or it would have drawn attention, in my opinion, for this type of defendant, to the point where he would have an emotion or an enrage, having watched them over time. So I feel like it's a classic case. I mean, it sounds like if you were to, when we study in school, in psychology, when we study in school about crimes, you sort of find this sort of classic fit in this particular case. And I think that's what intrigues us all, because it's so classic. You're sort of looking for some sort of insight from this classic type of defendant. So I'm going to follow it. I mean, I have the same just curiosities, I guess, that anyone else would have reporting on it. We do hope to hear him express something. I think we would all be shocked if he took the stand, but if he took it, you know, that would maybe give us some sort of insight. I think when you're in this type of case, you're sort of looking to get to know this person so that you can avoid this type of person. So you can see what triggers this type of person. And we all know in real life and in psychology, it could be anything. These innocent young students were just living their lives. They were partying, they were having fun, they were doing what you do in college, working and hanging out and dating, and, you know, along crossing paths with someone that has a sort of demented interpretation of their life. All right, I don't want to take too long. I just wanted to say that it will be live streamed, so we know that's going to happen. And we also, it's coming up in a couple of months, I believe the trial is. I think that they're going to do a lot of motions, pre-motions. There's already starting to be a little buzz about the motions that are going to be brought before the judge before the trial even begins. So it's a sad story from the point of view of the victims, whose lives were cut short, who had everything to live for, by someone who equally had the same amount of opportunities, but a different perspective and point of view. He saw himself maybe a little less, but yet he was in the same place in life. So it's interesting. It's sometimes life boils down to just your point of view. Thank you so much. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.